Warriors. It's Melissa and Diane, and we are here today with Cortagonist. I keep wanting to say the Cortagonist, but hashtag Cortagonist, aka Courtney, who is an amazing Bookstagrammer, book blogger, YouTube book person. And we're super excited to introduce you guys to her and to introduce her to you guys and to just talk books. We're having a cupful of conversation. So I've got my tea today.
Yeah. I've got some cinnamon tea as well.
Okay.
I wait for this.
You know, when
Actually, Melissa brought me this wine, and I've been dying to taste it. It's a peach wine that she got for me on a vacation in Virginia, and I've been saving it for a special occasion. I figured talking books with book people is a special occasion. So.
I do miss a cup of wine. Someday soon I'll be able to have one. I promise myself.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that's because you have a newborn.
I do. Yeah. He'll be 8 weeks on Friday. So, yeah, he's so precious. Thank you.
Is this your first baby?
Yes, it is our first baby. We got married in October last year, and then we got pregnant in November. So it was very like, bam, bam. Here, now you have a family.
Yeah. You didn't waste any time.
No, we did not.
I think that's the way to do it, though. My firstborn was just a little over 2 years after we got married, and you know, it's so wonderful. Yeah.
Oh yes,
we get longer
done
time
all the traveling. So like we went to Japan last summer, and like so we did a lot of like all of our traveling, and so we were ready for kids.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it, because we had kids pretty quick and we didn't do the traveling. So now in our empty nest coming up, that's when we're going to start our traveling.
Yes.
And
I love it.
Your little guy is named Alex, which is the name of my oldest.
Yes. Yep. Alexander. He's so precious.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
Are you reading to him yet?
Yes, no, we are reading to him. He's got a very big library. I actually did a book haul for him on my YouTube channel, because people were asking like what I had for him, and I even had some amazing subscribers send him books that were like their favorite when they read to their kids. And
that's so awesome.
Yeah, it made my heart so happy. I was like, oh, okay, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was my favorite activity with my kids when they were little, because that was the one time they would kind of sit still and we could snuggle and read. And they always knew too, when they got a little bit older, that I might not buy them a toy if we went to the store, but if they wanted a book, they'd always get a book.
Yes, and that's
what
my mom
the
did.
Scholastic book fairs.
The Scholastic book fair. As an educator, I spend a lot of money in the book fair, even now when I don't even have a classroom.
Oh,
they were such good deals, though. They were very inexpensive, and I used to work as a PTA mom too.
Yeah, and I love the money that goes back to the school.
That was always fun.
I was a teacher, so I went back to the classroom. Now I just have books that I can't resist for your grandchildren that are, years and years away, but I have my collection. Yeah.
My mom had a stack full of books. She was like, now if you have a girl, here's this stack. And then if you have a boy, here's this stack. Or that you can just mingle all of the stacks together. He's like, and they'll read whatever. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. I love it.
That's awesome. Well, so we want to talk books with you tonight. Yes. And so we have some people that are leaving comments. First of all, they see us, all three of us, and we have done this perfectly. So that's good. And I think it's Mary saying that we did it. So yay. Hello from London. Hi from London. I don't see names, Diane. Maybe you can.
I don't either. It just says Facebook user, unfortunately. Yep. Yeah. So maybe I can type in your names before you type in your comment, and that way we'll know who we're talking to.
Yes.
I think that's how we see it, but on our actual Book Warriors, I think it shows their names. That's what happened last time.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
I'll pull up our page on my phone, see if I can see it. I can watch it there while I do this on my computer. I can multi-screen.
You've got this.
So, Courtney, let's just start with your love of books.
Yeah.
So, is your love of books mostly cozy mysteries or all mysteries? Or, I mean, we just want to kind of hear your story.
So I've always loved reading. One of the things that my mom instilled in me, every paycheck, like we didn't have a lot of money, but every paycheck we went to Barnes and Noble and I was allowed to buy one book every paycheck. And it was the Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen adventure novels. So I had like dozens upon dozens. So my mystery love started when I was really, really young. And I always found it like a challenge to try and figure out the whodunit before the protagonist did. And I always like clapped myself on the back. I was like, yes, I got it before them. Or like I'd be just as stoked if they tricked me and like I had no clue who actually did it. And so I started there and I read all different kinds of books, from romance novels. I read a lot of romance novels when I was in high school. So read a lot of like Sherilyn Kenyon and like Laurel K. Hamilton paranormal romances with mysteries always entangled in it. And then I didn't even know that cozies existed until I stumbled upon it was a Jennifer Crusie book, and I really loved, like, there was more mystery than there was romance. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this. I'm like, sometimes I want the romantic scene, but sometimes that 4 or 5 pages gets in my way, and I just want to know the whodunit.
Yeah.
So I was like, are there books like this? And so I just started going down Barnes & Noble, and then the puns, I was like, oh, this is a thing? And yeah, and it just sort of went from there. I just couldn't not buy all of the punny books, and then it just turned out that they were also amazing and fun and lighthearted. A great way to sort of get out of the classroom, because I always worked in lower socioeconomic schools, and so those kids have your heart, and there are days where you had to be so strong for them that you went home and you were just kind of sad because there was nothing else you could do except love them in the classroom. And I didn't want to read about, really, really sad things, though I know a cozy mystery has murder in it. It's off to the side, and it's not.
I call it happy murder.
Yes, it's happy murder. Exactly. And I'm like, and so I just fell in love with those, and I've never looked back. I just love them so much.
Do you remember what your first one was?
So I think that my very first one was, it was an Elizabeth Lynn Casey. It was her Sewing Circle series was my very first cozy mystery series. And I just fell in love with it. And then I was like, I had read all of those up to what she had. And then one of my very first cozies was actually your magical dressmaking series.
Wow.
I binge read all of the ones that you had out and absolutely loved them. And I was like, once those stopped, I was like, well, I need more. And then I just kept going and kept going.
Oh, that is so
So
awesome.
do you sew?
Huh?
Do you sew? Do you sew yourself?
And I knit.
Okay. I thought maybe that's why that kind of drew you in, those series.
It's the feisty older ladies in the Sewing Circle series
Yeah.
that literally had my heart. Like, if there's a feisty grandma in the series, I really don't need anything else. The sassiness reminds me of my nanny, and I live for it.
Oh, that's cute. Who else out there likes feisty older women? I'm curious if any of our book warriors like that too. I always liked Grandma Mazer from the Stephanie Plum series. I always thought she was hilarious.
Oh, I love her. I love her. Yes. Yeah, I think
they can get away with anything.
There was one winter where we actually had a freak snowstorm in Oklahoma where I live, which we don't normally get snowstorms like that, but it was like 3 feet outside, and it was right after Christmas. And so I had just gotten my Nook when Nooks were like, the e-reader was a huge thing. And I had gotten gift cards from my grandparents, and I binge read the first 11 books in a week of the Stephanie Plum series. And I just devoured it.
That's awesome. Yeah, she sucked me into that sort of genre too. Definitely.
Yeah. Two slaves. Drew Ann Love, who is also a book blogger. She has Drew's Book Musing. She says she loves Grandma Mazer too.
Yes.
And Patricia Clapp says she loves feisty women. We've got Cecilia here from Atlanta. Who else do we have here? Delaware is Gwen. We've got Sophia from London. Selena from Denton. Some other people from Texas. So we've got a good group here. So
yeah. So Courtney, you have this love of cozy mysteries. So what happened next? How did you start bookstagramming first? Like, were you an early adopter to Instagram, or like what led you into sharing that love with other people?
So this will be, I just hit my 3-year mark, I think, on BookTube and Bookstagram. And I just wanted to find other people who read as much as I did, because no one in my family really reads as much. And my friends are always like, are you sure you're just going to stay in and read all weekend? And I'm like, yeah, guys, like, that's what I want to do with my life. It's a judgy-free zone, okay? Like, that's what I want to do. And so my boyfriend, my husband now, was like, well, why don't you just go online and see if there's any communities? And I was like, okay. And so I started typing in like my favorite authors and things into YouTube and to Instagram. And then I fell into Bookstagram and BookTube. And I was like, what is this world? And I realized that there weren't any BookTube cozy mystery people. Like when I started, no one was talking about cozies. And I'm like, no, we need to fix this. I was like, cozies need to be out in the world. And because I mean, they're just happiness in a book, and the covers are stunning. Like both of your covers are just like, I sort of stalked both of your websites today, and I was like, ooh, that looks good, and that looks good, and this is going on my TBR. And I was like, this just has to be, this is what we're going to do. And so my Instagram and my BookTube are mainly cozy mysteries.
Well, I think some of the reasons that we like writing them are some of the reasons you like reading them too. You know, it's nice to have that mix, a little bit of romance, a lot of mystery, but to keep it light so that it isn't, you know, a heavy, depressing downer thing, but still to have a little suspense and a little action and a little bit of meat to the story with the murders.
And
you know, it's
I was actually, so on your website, Diane, your bio, your first sentence of your bio, like had me hooked. I was like, what do you mean? How did you inadvertently end up working with criminals? I was like, now I have to have this lady in my life. I was like, oh my God. It reminds me of like, since I've been on maternity leave, reading's kind of hard. So I've been binge watching like NCIS and Bones. And I was like, this is just like one of those episodes. I need to know, how did that happen?
Well, it's happened multiple times too, which is kind of ironic. So the first time was actually when I went to law school. I got a degree in accounting, and then I went to law school. And my first job as a baby attorney was working at the state attorney general's office, and I worked in what they call the finance division. So we represented all the state agencies that had anything to do with financial matters, like the State Board of Public Accountancy. We would do disciplinary actions against CPAs and the State Board of Insurance and stuff like that. And CPA board, I was amazed at how much, because I always thought, you know, CPAs are nerds, right? Well, it turned out there was all kinds of CPAs doing all kinds of shenanigans. But the Attorney General, Dan Morales, that I worked under, he ended up getting arrested for tax fraud, mail fraud, all kinds of stuff. And it was related to the tobacco company lawsuits back when those were going on. This was like the early 90s. And he had friends who had outside law firms, and sometimes the Attorney General's office would hire private law firms to help with things because, you know, we had a kind of a limited staff. Well, he sent a bunch of money from the tobacco lawsuits to his friends' firms, even though they had little on the cases, stealing money and diverting it to his friends. So he got in all kinds of trouble for that. And then I went from there, we moved to San Diego. My husband got a fellowship out there, and I went to work for a big accounting firm. And one of the partners I worked for later got arrested in the biggest tax shelter fraud case in U.S. history. And so I'm like, oh my God, my bosses are getting arrested for all kinds of fraud. And I just, you know, never would have believed that would have happened. He was a nice guy, very clean cut. Came from a wealthy family. Yeah, and you know, it just got me to be fascinated kind of with crime, and that's part of what actually writing these books was. I just kind of couldn't reconcile in my head, how do these people who seem like normal everyday people commit these crimes? And that's what happens in cozies. It's normal everyday people who you would never suspect, you know, that could actually do these things. So I think those experiences are, you know,
yeah, I was going to ask, have you always wanted to be a writer?
I always loved writing. So I took a very circuitous route to get here, but I don't know that, you know, when I was young, I don't know that I would have thought it was a real thing I could do, because it seemed kind of like a pipe dream. Like I thought you had to have a really interesting life, and I didn't know anybody who was a writer. I didn't even know how to go about it. And I came from a very practical military, you know, family. So I think if I had told my parents, oh, I want to major in English and be a writer, they would have been like, oh, do something practical. In fact, I didn't know what I wanted to do. My mom's the one who said, well, you know, you can't go wrong with a business degree. Why don't you major in accounting? And I just said, okay. So, you know, so really, I just, you know, it was very little planning. Oh, I can't hear you. It's kind of blurping in and out. Can you say that again?
Oh, you started out in accounting and you became a lawyer. So you had a very circuitous route.
Yeah, well, I really like. Yeah, I like taking those exams, you know, the bar exam and the CPA exam. Yeah, I really liked my political science classes. But you know what I liked about law school was reading the cases, because you've got characters, you've got plot, conflict. You know, that was always my favorite thing. And the writing, I was really good at writing. In fact, a couple times when I did have cases, I asked, and it always would surprise the opposing counsel. I'd say, can we do closing arguments by brief? And the judges would just look at me, the opposing counsel, like, you mean you don't want to talk? And I'm like, I'm better on paper than I am here. You know, I can be more convincing. So anyway, but if I realized, you know, I don't want to be doing this other stuff. I want to be dealing with my characters and writing books. And
I love it.
I was finally in a position where I could do it. You know, the stars kind of had to align to make that happen. So
I think that's the way it always is, or you know, that it often is, that you fall into something that you didn't necessarily intend to, or you know, it just happens, and you feel like actually I put in those 10,000 hours. You know, I've put in all of this time to get where I am, even though maybe it wasn't planned exactly.
Yeah, my master's is in American Studies in Native American and Women's Studies, but I'm a digital learning specialist. So literally, I don't use my degree at all in any way, shape, or form, but I deal with technology and education.
How did you end up there? Like, what took you to that path?
So I taught fifth grade for 5 years, and then I've always wanted to be a history teacher. So I got my master's in American Studies and moved up to teaching 7th and 8th grade. And then my now boss, he saw how good I was with technology, and I had my YouTube channel, and he's like, you know how to edit videos? He's like, what else do you know how to do? And I was like, well, this and this. And he's like, did you go to school for it? I was like, no, I just taught myself. I was like, I just wanted to know how to do it. So I did it. And he's like, you should go look at the job board. Like, didn't tell me anything else. He's just like, go look at the job board. And so I was like, I like my job, but I went and looked, and it was the digital learning specialist job was open. And it just sort of, I interviewed, and he really, really liked me and said that I was very personable, I guess, and that people would listen to me if I was trying to train them on technology. So I just sort of took it and ran with it.
Well, I think that personableness is what helps make you so successful and so awesome as a booktuber also, because you just have this quality to you that's very affable and, you know, makes us just want to hug you.
Thank you. I love people. Like, I like making people feel good, and I love being my genuine self. Like, I never put up a front of like, and this is how I feel. Like, I am a horrible liar, and like my face literally tells you exactly how I'm feeling. My husband even goes, honey, you really need to work on your face. Like my mother-in-law's like, she'll say, she said something one time, and apparently I really didn't like it. And she goes, oh, you didn't like that. And I was like, oh, no, it's fine. And she goes, no, you really didn't like that. And I'm like, well, not really. no.
Well, it means you're honest, right?
Yes, I try to be. I'm like, I will sugarcoat things for children, but for adults, I'm just like, I'm like, here it is. I will help you be the best person you can possibly be when I'm in the classroom with teachers, because, you know, I'm their teacher, so I've got to be the best I can for them. So, yeah.
Well, I love your name protagonist, because it's like protagonist, antagonist. Did you have other names you tossed about, bandied about before you settled on that one?
There was a whole entire list. My husband actually sat down with me and like we just kept going down like the cozy book person. There was like, I don't even know. There was a whole entire list. And you know, he was like, well, you know, there's like protagonists and antagonists. I was like, yeah. He's like, courtagonist. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, courtagonist. And I was like, that's brilliant. I was like, yes.
Honey,
and
like the books you love.
Yes. I was like, this is fantastic. And you will be surprised by how many people, they're like, what does your name mean? Or they'll call me like courtagonist. And I'm like, that's real close. That's real close. But it's courtagonist, protagonist, like, you know.
So he's the one who got you online doing this, and then he came up with your name. So he's a really good partner. He gets you. There's nothing more romantic than someone that gets you and supports what you love.
He's the most amazing. He's like, he watches every single one of my videos. He always reminds me, hey, you didn't put your in slate on. Like, so he watches all the way to the end and he's like, you need to put, you know, your subscribe button. It's missing. And different things like that. He's pretty fantastic. I'm pretty lucky with my guy.
That's awesome. So have you ever wanted to write your own book?
I have, yeah. So I have two like ideas in my mind. But I'm also one of those people that all my life I grew up with, you know, you have to have a practical job. Like I'm one of those first graduates in my school or in my family. Like my grandmother barely graduated high school. My mom got her GED. And so like when I became a teacher, they were like, that's very practical. You'll always have a job as a teacher kind of thing. But I always enjoyed writing essays and, I always fix everybody's grammatical errors and text messages. And just like, that was just like teenage Courtney. She was like, we don't use lol, we use ha 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 because that's what we're saying. And she was very snobby. But so there's one where there's a whole bunch of feisty older women who have finally met in life where they have all reached a point of retirement, whether it's through their husband was well off, and when he passed away, they were able to continue their job, or they became old enough to retire. And what they do is every year they go on a cruise. And so the first one is the four feisty ladies stumble upon a body on the cruise deck of a very, very nasty, pompous man. And so that, I don't know. I like they're like my cruising chicks. I love them. Like they're in my head, and I'm like, oh God, she would just love this. And I'll write this one thing, and then Erin's like, how did that come out of you? You would never say something like that. I was like, I don't know, but she thinks that way, and that's just how it is. And so I love that.
That's how, and yeah, the characters tell you what they want to say.
Yes.
Yeah, people think we have more control over our stories than we do, because yeah, the characters just kind of come in and do what they do. We basically just dictate what's happening.
Exactly. I'm just the scribe. Like I'll write down. There's one of them who she picks up husbands. She's an anthropologist, and she picks up a husband in every one of the countries that she visits throughout her years as an anthropologist. And so, she lived in Baghdad. So she had a husband in Baghdad, and then they ended up having a divorce. And then she went to the Zuni in the lower part of the United States, and she got a husband there. And then it's like once they try to settle her down or try and make her have more of a permanent life, she's like, nope, never mind. I changed my mind. And then she leaves. And then so on this, in my mind, in this first book, she's trying to snag a very, very Sean Connery debonair kind of guy on the ship. And then the other ladies are like, come on, at our age, come on. It's hilarious. I love it.
It sounds so great. I hope you finish it.
I know. I read that book.
I know, too.
Yeah. I just get nervous. I'm like, is my writing any good? Like, is it like, I'm excited about the characters, but I'm like, like my husband, he shakes his head at puns. He loves that I love cozies, but he's just like, so I'm like, I can't get him to like read the first little bit and him actually go like, yeah, that's a great cozy, because he's never read a cozy and he has no clue.
Oh, so he has some limits. He's not entirely perfect. Good to know.
No. He totally teases me when it comes to the puns. Like, I'll go, babe, I got a haul. Listen to this title. And he's like, you're killing me. You're killing me. All in jest, but it's, yeah, he doesn't read them.
Sophia and Joanne are both saying you should write that book, and it sounds like a great book. And Cecilia, of course, commented on Dobby.
Oh,
she saw Dobby. Cecilia's a big dog person. I'm tempted to go get my cat. All y'all can see right now is my cat tree behind me, but my cat's ignoring me. She's over at her bed back over there.
Cleo's in here somewhere. I have 2 cats and 2 dogs, but Cleo, she actually shows up in my videos. So if you watch my videos, Cleo runs around everywhere. She's like, I'm the star of the show. I'm like, yes, you are. I promise.
I have Cleopatra in my House Flippers.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Series. I had put on my face for suggestions for names. Somebody said Cleopatra. It's actually Cleopatra, Cleo for short, but she's a calico though. Yours is black, right? I think.
Yeah, all black. And she's named after Cleopatra as well. And she acts like she is just the queen and that everyone else should bow down towards her. The only person that she listens to is me. Like, she doesn't really let anybody else pet her, but she'll love all over me. It's pretty funny.
You're her person.
I am her person. Yes. So I was wondering, are we going to get any more dressmaking series books?
Oh, yeah, I was so.
Oh, you froze.
6. Oh, Diana. Oh, can you hear me?
You froze for a second. Can you repeat?
Okay. So the publisher decided not to continue that series after 6 books, and I was really, really sad about that because I love that series, and I miss Harlow and Bliss, Texas. And I don't know, I go back and forth between wanting to revisit that and write another one or maybe even a mini mystery. But then again, I love what I'm writing now, and so part of me thinks, well, do I really want to go back to that, or do I just want to go forward? So I don't know. To be honest, I'm not sure because I waffle on that a lot.
I totally understand. What made you pick Winnie Archer? Were you told that was going to be your pseudonym? Because I did a whole entire research on why cozy authors have so many different names, because I miss out on so many of my favorite authors because I don't know that they have another pen name.
Yeah. That's a good question. So I wrote as Melissa Bourbon with the dressmaking, and then the Bread Shop series is with a different publisher. And so they wanted to have a different name so that they could release it as a debut author, and it's about placement at Barnes & Noble and that co-op space. So I needed to come up with something, and so I didn't want to just choose some random name. So I chose my grandmother's name, which is Winifred, and she went by Winnie. And then that was on my dad's side, and then my mom's side, I went with Archer, which is a surname of, I never get it right, like great grandmother. So
I love that.
Yeah, so I just try to connect it to family and those female relationships and all that's always a big part of all my books. So it felt right.
No, I love that. And I can't wait. Like, once I figured out, because I had the first book in my, like, I sent you the picture. I had the first book on my shelf, but I had no idea that it was you, or I had like already binge read the whole series, because I typed in Melissa Bourbon, I don't even know how long ago. And I was like, there's no more dressmaking series. I was like, I don't know what else to do with my life. So like I went on to other things, and then I managed to pick that one up because I love baking mysteries. Like, those are like my I love baking mysteries. So I was like, oh, this is hilarious, this title. I was like, I've got to grab that. And then when you messaged me on Instagram, I was like, wait, hold on, no way. My husband, he probably couldn't, he was like, stop talking about it. I was like, did you know? She messaged me. And he's like, calm down, calm down. I was like, she wants to be alive with me. I was like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm such a turtle. And like, he was like, it's okay. It's okay. Calm down.
Oh, that is so awesome to hear. I mean, as a writer, I don't know, for me, to know that something I wrote resonates or is like, you know, one of your favorite things is,
yes,
it's like, wow, it's so exciting for me to hear that.
I loved Harlow's connection with her grandmother, and because I'm very, very, very close to my Nani. And so like when I read about how close all of like her and her mom, and like how crazy her mom was with the goats, and like with my mom is very just her own person. Like you wouldn't know that we are mother and daughter. We are vastly different. But it just their relationship to each other reminded me of mine with my mom and my Nani. And so I was pulled into that series so quickly, and I binge read it as soon as I could. Like I bought all of them all at once and just read them all at once.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you.
I loved it. So you guys both also write like romancy kind of books as well, right? Like paranormal kind of romance as well. Is that what, did I see that correctly?
So for me, I dabbled a little bit. So I have one standalone paranormal romance. It has a little mystery element. Everything has to have a mystery element to me. And then I have 2 mystery suspense / romances. So they're out there, but they're quite a few years old. I love them, especially the suspense mysteries that are based on these. But yeah, I mean, that was just sort of something I did, but I'm fully both feet in the mystery genre now.
Yeah. Because I was like, how do you sort of split your brain between the 2 different genres and not let them intermingle, especially with romance and cozy, because there's a fine line with romances and cozies where if the reader is strictly a cozy reader, but you put too much of that on the page, you will completely turn off that reader, no matter how amazing your characters are, if they're not into that. Like, but if you write both romance and cozy, like how do you know sort of the line not to pass?
Well, so Diane writes more romance than I do. So how do you do that? How do you turn your brain?
I have a glass of wine. With the romances, you know, most of mine are short stories that I did independently. I do have one that has a paranormal element, and it was actually it's called Love, Luck, and Little Green Men, and it's one of my favorite things I ever wrote. And it was actually years ago, before I ever had my first book published, and I was attempting at that point, you know, still kind of figuring out who I was as a writer and kind of attempting to chase the market. You know, paranormals were big then, but of course they were usually dark. And I found I just couldn't do dark. So I had this idea, you know, since I'm Irish, my maiden name was O'Brien, my married name's Kelly, I would do something with leprechauns in it. Well, so what it was supposed to be dark paranormal ended up being this rom-com with a wet t-shirt contest and a leprechaun.
Oh, I love it.
I had a lot of fun with the book because it had a dog in it. And it really was, I felt like one of my most heartfelt stories. But yeah, it's a whole different approach because that's the emotion, and where the cozies are a little, you know, more cerebral. It's more about kind of showing the smart side of the main character versus the emotional side of the main character, even though there's, you know, of course, some emotions that come along with cozies, but it's kind of just a, you know, it's a sliding scale for all of them, but it's definitely, you know, opposite ends of the spectrum. But I do find as I get older, my interest in writing romance is not as high as it used to be, probably because just natural, you know. And I remember Janet Ivanovich talk about that too. She said when she got to a certain age, her thoughts turned to killing. But I still love a good romance story because, you know, who you end up with and who you choose to partner with, or if you choose to partner with somebody, that's you know, the rest of your life hinges around that. So it's such an important thing. So I do hate how how, there's this tendency for some people to act like romance is, trash and it's not meaningful, because it's very meaningful.
Oh yeah.
Well, I would say most,
but I'm just having with cozies too.
Most books have romances on some level, John Grisham and all these writers, they have a thread of romance. It's just how much versus how many bodies or whatever.
So how do you guys feel?
Right. And I still love to include it.
Yes. So cozies also, it seems lately a lot of cozies that I read end up having a love triangle of some sort. So what are your guys' positions on love triangles when it comes to your genre? What do you guys think?
Well, it's funny because my first series, my Death and Taxes series, when I started writing it, my main character, I visualized she was going to end up with Brett. And I had this critique partner. I feel like I'm really good with character, but she was really good with plot. Her name is Angela Kavanagh. Look her up. She writes also as Hadley Holt. She's a really good author. But she kept saying, you need to throw a love triangle in here. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. No way, no how. I'm not doing that. And then finally I kind of started thinking about it because it just went against my vision. And then finally I started thinking about it. I'm like, Angela's a really good plotter, and she's also really good with sensuality and really good with romance. Maybe I should think about this. Then I started thinking about it. Then this other guy walked into my head, Nick. And then all of a sudden it was like, ooh, okay. So I turned, he came in, and my editor loved it. And I owe all that to Angela. So that's why it's good. People think writing is a solitary profession, and for the most part it is, but we do confer with our fellow writers and bounce ideas. I mean, Melissa and I do that all the time. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Because sometimes you need to to come up with stuff. But yeah, I think that love triangles happen a lot in real life when people are trying to make that decision. And sometimes, the two people who might seem like the right one can come along at the same time, and it's hard to decide. And so I think it can be interesting. I love the whole Ranger Joe thing in the Stephanie Plum series, although I'm getting to the point now where it's going to be Joe. It's got to be Joe.
See, and that's the thing. I think that I'm okay with love triangles up to a point. Mm-hmm. So once it's like maybe 2 or 3 books in, okay, I can totally deal with that. That gives me enough character growth and development over those 3 books to really decide who I like more for the character. But there are some series that, I actually Googled, when does, this protagonist finally choose? Because I'm tired of waiting. And it was book 17. And then they didn't even choose one of the 2. Another person came in that they didn't even know. And that's who they chose. But then they got divorced 2 books later. And I'm like, I'm not going to waste my life and read all the way up to 17 and have my heart set on one person. And then that's just too much.
Yeah. I have a love triangle.
Well, I thought that we wanted her to be with the crop.
I have a love triangle of sorts in the Lola Cruz books with Jack Callahan and Manny Camacho, but I feel the same way. Maybe it's because I've been in so many love triangles myself. I just didn't want to write about them. No, kidding. It kind of exists, but then, one clearly rises to the top. It's clearly who Lola's meant to be with. And then another relationship develops for the other guy. And so it's evident, because I'm with you. I don't like the idea of stringing it along and creating this sort of artificial conflict throughout. And then with the cozies, I don't see a real reason to keep them apart, because that's not what the story's about. So I like the men in my heroines' lives to be supportive and, to be there as part of the problem-solving component of the book, So I'm not really for the love triangles myself in the cozies, but that's just my personal preference.
Yeah, I did
Drew Ann is saying that she just likes love triangles too, and she knows the series that you're talking about.
Dislikes them.
Dislikes them, and she knows the series that Courtney's talking about.
Yeah. I'm not going to name.
I suspect I know too.
Yeah. I just, I love, so I did a whole series on my YouTube channel of cozy mystery tropes. And so I did tropes I love about cozy mysteries and then tropes I dislike about cozy mysteries. And I think that that's probably like I never say anything really negative about like a certain book or like a certain author. I'll say, you know, this one didn't really you know, jive with me, but if you like this, and this, you're gonna love it. And so like I never bash a specific person or a book or anything like that. And it was interesting because I asked a lot of my my subscribers as I was planning out the tropes videos, like, what are the tropes you love and what are the tropes that are maybe you dislike or maybe you're getting tired of because it's being overused so much. And that was one of the overused tropes, was the fact that there was a love triangle so much. And so I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on it as authors, because I don't know if, you know, publishers are like, you should have this in here, or you need to have this in order for this to be marketable. And that sort of the back scenes kind of thing.
I've never had a publisher give me any explicit, you know, kind of requests about anything like that. So what's one of your favorite cozy tropes then, since you've done a whole series?
Okay, I love tropes when they have a fur animal in there. When they have a cozy companion is what I call fur animals. They're the cozy companion. And when they are a part of the series and they actually have personality in the series, like it is my absolute favorite thing. I love so Sophie Kelly, who also writes as Sophie Ryan. I love the cats in her series. They have so much. Yes, look at the baby. Oh, where's Cleo? I don't know. Oh, she's asleep in my Papa's chair. She's like, I'm asleep. Hold on, let me see if I can grab her. Come here.
Dobby's all just stood up in here.
This is Winky. She's like 1,000,000 years old.
She's like, I was asleep, Mom.
She's beautiful.
I think I'm about to get a claw in the eye. So,
yes. Like,
so
all over me.
About the cozy companion, I love that phrase. But Diane, you write from your animal's points of view, which I think is, I don't know how typical that is. I haven't read
that is not typical. I don't even think I've read one cozy where it also had the cat was a main character and the protagonist could talk to the cat. But I haven't read that. And I was going to ask which series do you think that I should start with? But I was automatically drawn when I saw all those cozy companions all over your website. I was like, oh my gosh, why haven't I found her before? Do you know how many times I've researched like cozies with dogs, cozies with cats? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is fate. This is good.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting writing them because they don't actually talk, but you get in their head, and so you hear what they're thinking. So I've had a lot of fun with that because, but it was interesting because when I first did my paw enforcement series was the first time I did a point of view from an animal, and when I turned it into my editor, she said, you know, I'm not sure about this. People don't like talking animals, or something to that effect. But they don't really talk; they're just thinking. But and so I went to my critique partner Angela and I said, what do you think? Do I take that out? And she said, no, you need to fight for that. That was part of your whole vision for this project, was the dog and the cop, fighting to see who's going to be the alpha female in their pack. And it turns out readers have loved talking. There might be more hesitancy because people would be like, well, that's a paranormal element. That's something additional beyond what they expect from the story, but they do like hearing the dog's point of view because we all see what our pets do every day, and sometimes kind of like you were saying how your expressions are really clear on your face. I can look at my cat or my dog and I know exactly what they're thinking. And so,
oh yeah, like I'm just you need to stop being so judgy. Okay, this might be my 12th cookie, but you know what? I've had a hard day. You don't know the day I've had. And then they just be like, all right, lady. I mean, I'm not going to tell you, but I'm going to look at you. Like, I swear, all of my animals, they all have their own personality, and they're all sassy at me. So I totally agree. Mm-hmm. And so I love that. I will be most certainly picking up that series.
Well, the paw enforcement series.
Yeah, and to me too, my pets, and I know it's the same with Melissa too, they're such a big part of our day. I mean, they're who I talk to most of the day long. And so I figure if somebody else is going to be like that too. So I couldn't imagine kind of not doing that in the book where they're not having.
Yeah, I call my animals my fur children. Like before I had Alex, like these were my babies. Like we got quarantined in March, and I would tell Willow it was time to come to work. And she would walk from, she's my Pekingese, little white Pekingese, and she would waddle from the living room and sit in her bed next to my desk as I'm working. And then I'd go, it's lunchtime. And she would, walk, or I'd go, she wouldn't come back for lunch, and I'd peer around and I'm like, you're late for work. And she'd go, and then she'd walk back, and like I tell her it's rent time and she has to give me kisses. Like if she hears that it's rent, she knows that she has to give me love because that's how she has to pay her rent. Like, yes.
That's awesome.
That's cute. So has your cat tried to get in your?
Oh, sorry, Diane. Go ahead.
Has your cat tried to get in your son's crib and cuddle with him?
Yes. So through my whole entire pregnancy, my cat Tom, he loved all over my belly. Like anytime Alex would like kick, Tom would purr and like push him even closer into my stomach. And so all of the animals except for one, like they're like his guardian angels. There was like the first week that we had Alex, I finally put him down in the bassinet to go to the bathroom. And this was the first time that I'd like put him down to go to another room. And when I came back from the restroom, my dog Willow was sitting on the couch and she was peering into the bassinet, and Tom was on the armchair peering into the bassinet. And then they kept looking at Alex, and then they'd look at me, and then Alex and look at me, and they're like, he's supposed to be in your arms. What are you doing? And like it was such a judgy look of like, excuse me, you're not doing your motherly duty. Pick him up now. And it cracks me up. And anytime like people come over to visit Alex, Willow has to be on them. And she's like, okay, you have my baby. Like be gentle with my baby. It's amazing. I love it.
That's so awesome.
That's sweet.
So about your BookTube channel, how often do you do, how often did you do videos, and how often are you doing now that you have the baby?
So before Alex, I would 100% post twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And then towards my first trimester of pregnancy, I was so exhausted that I didn't film for about 2 months because I have hypothyroidism. So I was also dealing with like my thyroid levels and things like that, which I had no idea also intermingle with pregnancy and all of that fun stuff. So I was just exhausted, but I was reading a ton. So I would post on my Goodreads, like I finished this book, I finished this book, I finished this book. And my subscriber group and just like they are just amazing. Like they become my family is how I see it. Like I just hit, I think 3,100 subscribers on my YouTube channel. And I mean, the ones that comment all the time, I know their children's names. I know their husband's names. I've reached out to them to check on them if they haven't commented in a while. Like it's just, they become sort of my family, and they would reach out to me. Hey, how are you doing? Even though I wasn't posting, they were like, just checking on you. How are you? How's the baby doing? And so that was really, really great. And it just kept my passion for it going, so that when I had him, I've been trying to post at least twice a week. My husband is so kind enough to sort of take him on Saturdays. And so I film both my videos on Saturdays and then edit them on Sunday so that they can be up for the next week is what I try and do. But we shall see when I have to go back to work in a couple of weeks, sort of how I'm going to balance all of that all at once.
Yeah. Well, your readers understand, since they're so close to you and you have that great rapport with them. They'll understand if you have to scale back a little bit.
Yeah, they're just so sweet. I love them so much. And it's been the cozy mystery sort of community is probably the kindest community I've ever met. Because I've seen a lot of almost hatefulness in other genres in their communities, like where, well, this author's better than this author, or no, this or this or this, and then they go back and forth, and I'm like, that doesn't happen in my world. I was like, my world, everybody's like, oh, you liked this person? Go try this person, and we love everyone. And cozy mysteries are just so like that, cozy and full and love and open, that's just sort of how we roll in the cozy world. Is we're just
I like it kind of ties into what you said earlier, how you won't really diss a book. You'll just say, if you like this, you might like it. Because because it's recognizing that people have different tastes, and that even if it wasn't your cup of tea, it might be somebody else's cup of tea. And we've noticed that too, that in our Book Warriors family, that we have some regulars we're getting to know, and we love that. Some of the people that are here tonight are some of our regulars, and it's just nice to be able to share books and this experience. And it's very nice people, and it's very smart women too. And
yes.
we love how, like, on Wednesdays we do What Are You Reading Wednesday, and people share great book suggestions. And a lot of times it's another cozy series, but sometimes it's not. And it's interesting to see what people are supplementing their cozy habit with. Sometimes
those books are my palate cleansers. So if I've binged read a whole entire series, I might need to, take a pause and read, a suspense novel, or I might need to take a pause and read a philosophy book, or I went on a whole entire nonfiction kick. Like last year, I read a lot of, oh my goodness, his name just went off the top of my head. But I read a lot of his books, and then I always go back to cozies though. Like some people, if I read too many non-cozy books, they'll actually comment, "Are you done reading cozies?" And I'm like, no, like I've read almost 100 books this year, and 80% of them are cozies. But you need some of those palate cleansers that get you ready to read the next set.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, so we've been 52 minutes, so we want to try and keep it in about an hour, but we do have a couple of questions that we want to ask you, and these are questions that we are going to start asking everybody that we chat with. So the first is, because this is a cupful of conversation, we want to know what is typically in your cup during the day, and then what about on special occasions. So what are your drink choices?
So I love, there's this coffee from in Nebraska, and it's like a coffee caramel, and I absolutely love it with peppermint creamer. I have an addiction to peppermint creamer, and I get really sad at the end of the season when peppermint creamer is no longer a thing. Not gonna lie, I just did a Walmart delivery where I got 2 32-ounce peppermint creamers in my fridge right now, just to keep up.
That's a lot of peppermint creamer.
It is, and I absolutely love it. And then what I drank tonight was Harney and Sons hot cinnamon tea. That is amazing if you don't feel well and you just want fall in a cup and not too much caffeine. But then for like an adult beverage, I like Moscato wine, and then I also like whiskey sours.
Ah, so you have quite an eclectic palate. Okay,
I do.
Sours to peppermints.
Yes, I like all of the things. I'll try anything.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite cup that you take everywhere with you, or?
So this, I have a water bottle that I literally take everywhere with me, and you will see in almost every one of my videos. My sister had glued googly eyes on it, so like those little spots are because there were googly eyes all over it. Her and my husband have this joke where he has a whole entire bag of googly eyes where I don't even know where it is. And so random things of mine throughout the house won't have googly eyes one moment, and then the next time it will. So that water bottle goes with me everywhere, but I have a I have a mug that is Luke's Diner, Gilmore Girls, and that's the mug that I have coffee in almost every morning. Is that cup of coffee?
I think cups kind of become our security blanket.
Yes. Well, and I drink a big cup of coffee. So like this cup isn't big enough for a cup of coffee for me. Like that's too small. My Gilmore Girls one is probably about that tall, and it does a really good cup of coffee because my friends call me bougie when it comes to coffee because like I grind my coffee fresh and I use a French press, and then I have like a frother where I put the peppermint in there, and then I put a little bit of sugar and I froth it all together and then pour the coffee in. And so I'm a little bougie when it comes to my coffee.
Hey, that's okay.
Sounds good.
I've been doing not my peppermint. I don't do peppermint. I do pumpkin spice. I've been doing my pumpkin spice lattes at home using pumpkin butter, and then my oat milk and frothing my oat milk, and it's quite tasty, I have to say.
That sounds amazing. I love that.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, let's see. What's for dinner tonight for you guys?
I think it's probably an FFA, which is a free for all. So I do have the makings for our favorite chili. I just got those in from our grocery delivery because temperatures just dipped here in Oklahoma, and it actually feels like it's almost fall here because a lot of time it just is horribly hot. And so I'm hoping to make that chili probably tomorrow night and make a big batch of it because that just sounds brilliant.
That does.
I think you're free for all.
So we get that hot weather.
Yeah, no.
I think your free for all is what I used to call leftover roulette.
Yes, I love it.
Get to a certain day when there'd be a little bit of this and a little bit of that in the fridge, and it's like, okay, everybody just kind of pick something. Here's all the Tupperware containers. And
yeah, my husband, he'll text me FFA ? And I'm like, yep, that's fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah. I've heard yo-yo too. You're on your own.
Oh, I love that.
That's awesome. I love that too. Diane, what was one of our other questions?
Let me pull them up.
Okay.
Where's my list? What's your favorite household chore and your least favorite?
So favorite household chore, I think right now it's folding my son's laundry because I love the way that his clothes smell from the laundry detergent that we used for him. And then like I get all emotional on like how tiny he is. I recently had to move his newborn. He's too big for his newborn now. So like I had to put those away. But my least favorite chore is dishes. I can't stand doing dishes. And that's my chore for the house is like doing the dishes. And I hate getting my hands clammy and too wet, but the gloves make my nails feel weird. It's just not my thing.
Well, you should trade with your husband.
I should, but he also does like the grossest one. Like he does the kitty litter box, even though they're not his cats. And he does like, he takes out the trash and like puts it to the curb and early in the morning and stuff. So it's sort of a fair trade because I don't want to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so our last question is, what is outside your window right now? The closest window to you.
That would be my neighbor's house. Like if I opened up my window, it would be the side yard between his house and our house, and it's like right on his driveway.
That's a great view.
Yeah, no, the blinds stay closed, unfortunately.
Yeah. Actually, I thought of one more question we'll have to add. So what are you reading right now.
Okay.
I couldn't answer that because I'm on my Nook all the time and I don't really like register what's the title or who's it by. So.
Yeah, a lot of times I have to go, what am I reading? But I am reading Anxious People right now, which is my Book of the Month Club book pick. And I love it right now because is it a burglary gone wrong, or is it a hostage situation, or is it a suicide attempt? And it goes through, every chapter is really short and quick, and it's from a different person's point of view. And
clever.
It's really, really nice because the characters are starting to realize that they know each other from like 10 years before, or they have a connection to everyone in there without even knowing it. So I'm reading that. And then I'm also reading Coconut Candle Casualty by Agatha Frost. It's her third in the Claire's Candle mystery series. And so I'm reading both of those at the same time.
Fun. I've heard a lot of great. I'm gonna have to take a look. So that's on my list of things to read.
Yes, I love Agatha Frost, and I love London Lovett because they don't write traditional cozies. Their cozies are sort of like really quick reads. So if you want to binge read something and have a lot of them, you can do that. Like Agatha Frost's Pyradelle Cafe mystery series is like 21 of them, and I can read one of them in less than like 2 or 3 hours. So
they're more like novellas?
Huh?
They're more like novellas, shorter?
Yes, very much so. And they're inexpensive on Kindle. So the first few are like on Kindle Unlimited, and then like the rest are no more than like $2.99. So I love supporting my indie authors as well as my traditionally published authors as well, because you can write a great story in a short novella as well as in the regular traditional setting as well. I love both of them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Courtney, Protagonist, thank you so much for being here with us. It was a lot of fun. I hope you had fun.
I did. I had a blast. Thank you guys so much. I'm so honored that you guys asked for me to come and chat with you guys. Hopefully I see you guys in the comments of my YouTube channel or on my Instagram. I know that I'll still be commenting on all of y'all's stuff as well.
Yeah. I'm on your Instagram all the time.
Yeah, and Book Warriors, go follow her so you can hear more about all of her commentary about cozies and join in.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Okay, y'all. Have a great night. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.